Welcome back to another episode of Inside Dobe. We are 5 weeks into the season so far. We had some good games on the weekend. We had some very, very average games. Look, there are some very average teams so far into this season, the AFL. Some have been extremely disappointing. Some have been very surprising, which I'll touch on a little bit later. I'll be bringing out my own AFL tiers, which I'll be saying at the end of the show, going through where I think all the teams rank so far, 5 weeks so far into the season. But going off last week's game, so we had Thursday night football, Brisbane versus Collingwood. My same game, it did hit the Dobe Thursday night. We are well and truly back. We are 2-2 on the season with one void, so pretty much take that as a win because you did get your money back. We had Zach Bailey for 15, we had Daniel Rich for 20, and we also had Joe Danaher for 3 snags. That hit, we tripled our money. Apart from that, it was pretty downhill for me on the punt, which I'll touch on as the games go through. Very, very stiff, so close to breaking this open. But hey, the next big win's just around the corner, so you just got to stick at it. Look, really good fight back from Collingwood, actually. They really surprised me, but Brisbane getting it done at home, which you would assume. They got it done by 7 points. It was very, very fast-paced. Brisbane, they were just trying to dish the ball off a lot, which I loved. They made a lot of mistakes. Collingwood really came back into it on those turnovers, but on the flip side, they looked so fast. I think once they get that going a little bit more throughout the season, they'll polish that up, and they'll really start to piece teams up all the way through the middle. I really love the way they were handballing, very emphatic, just go straight over the top, assuming some of the teammates were there over the top when they weren't at times, but they looked really good. They put their foot down when they had to, and they did get it done. Collingwood did kick a late one, which brought it back to 7 points, but they were up by more at that stage. Lachie Neale was amazing. Once again, he's having a great season, 33 disposals and a goal, and he was probably almost best on ground, followed by the worst on ground, Mason Cox with 4 disposals. He should never play another AFL game again. I think he went back to the 2s this week. Or he will be this week. His goggles, they've got to go. He's the worst, the most annoying player in the AFL. I hate Mason Cox. Get him out of the AFL. Send him back to America. Send him back to Texas. Get him playing basketball or something again because AFL is not where he needs to be. He had one of the weaker performances you will ever see. One of the most laziest performances on that Thursday night game. Under lights, he looked disgusting. So I don't think he'll be getting a game anytime soon. I'd put a line through him for the rest of his AFL career, if you're asking me. So Mason Cox has got to go. Lions get it done and are looking very, very good. I think they're going to keep rolling through teams and they're going to look very, very strong at home come the later part of the season. Now, coming into Good Friday, we thought it was going to be great Friday, but the games weren't great. They were terrible. North Melbourne and the Bulldogs. The Dogs so far seem to be struggling here and there at the start of this year, but the Roos, they end up getting pumped under the roof. Look, we all thought it probably was going to happen. I thought North would have had a little bit more fight, but they didn't. They looked average, getting done by 68 points. It's hard to win a game when you can't get your hands on the footy. 9 of the top 10 ball winners on the ground were Dogs players. They got so much of the footy. North couldn't get their hands on it. Bailey Smith with a season and a career high of 43 disposals. He was great. They shared the ball round. When the Dogs are really good, everyone's getting a piece of it, which is exactly what happened on Friday. Good Friday. It just seems to be an absolute pantsing for the Bulldogs once again. North Melbourne are in absolute strife. They are so hard to watch. They had a couple of little comebacks where they kicked 3 or 4 in a row, but never looked like they were really going to damage the Dogs at any stage. Now, the other Friday night match, the other Good Friday match, Great Friday, the Swans versus West Coast. My multi, I had another little one on. This is one of my first stiff ones from the weekend. I had Isaac Heaney for 3 death taxes. He's a great player. And then also Jake Lloyd for 25 touches. He came through with 24. All I needed was a point in the last minute or two, and Jake Lloyd would have taken a kick out, and West Coast have kicked 2 goals of the year and sent it straight back to the middle. So very, very stiff to get a collect on that game. But look, a very one-sided contest. The Swans put the cue in the rack at quarter time. They were up 34-0, and they never looked like losing this game. The Swans are definitely the real deal. They didn't play the best against the Bulldogs, I believe, in round 2, but they have so much young talent. I think they've got like 14 or 15 really good players in the team that are all under 26. They are looking like they're going to be really good this year and for the next 5 to 6 years going forward. But with no better talent on the team than Isaac Heaney. He only had the 16 disposals, but he kicked 3. Could have kicked about 5 or 6 because the Swans never really looked in danger. He never had to go into the middle at all. He could pretty much sit half forward and run around wherever he wanted. But the Swans can just use him wherever he wants. He has a license to do whatever he wants in that team, it looks like. Wherever they need him. If they need him to go win some ball inside the middle, he tends to go there. Or if not, he just tends to go forward and just try and kick goals. But he looks virtually unstoppable. The Swans have a pretty good run over the next few weeks, and I just think that they're going to keep building on that hard, tough football. West Coast, obviously, look how many injuries they've had. Put a line through them. They're absolutely done. Even though they had Elliot Yeo come back into the side, they had virtually no impact against a very good Swans outfit. Now, the next game we had St Kilda versus the Suns. Has what's been a very dangerous game for the Saints in recent years against the Suns. They got the job done, winning at home by 26 points. Jack Higgins was incredible. He had 7 marks and 5 goals. To be honest, he could have kicked 6 or 7. He missed a couple of easier set shots, but he was an unbelievable target for them up forward. Also, their number 1 target, which is Big Maxi King. He kicked 3 goals. Look, I still think Sam Collins played pretty well on him, but any of those quick turnovers and those quick one-on-ones, Sam Collins is no match at all for Max King. He'll win the Coleman this year, still very firm on him winning that. I still think he should be dead favourite, but once that ball goes up in the air and Maxi King gets a good run at it, at the top of his mark, he's almost impossible to spoil. Touk Miller was once again amazing. He had 32 disposals, 6 clearances, 486 metres gained. But look, the Suns need a lot more for Matty Rowell. Massive fan of him. He only had the 18 touches. He didn't look damaging at all. I feel he almost looked sore, the way he was running around the ground. He only worked through the middle square, so he never really went too far wide of the contest. He almost looked injured to me, the way he was just sort of roaming around, jogging, never really got in towards the contest. Every possession he got, he was under pressure. But he did seemed to pair up with Jack Steele at a lot of those centre clearances and stoppages. So obviously he must have had a bit of a role to put some work into him. But it looked like a 2-man show inside the centre square for the Gold Coast Suns. Noah Anderson and Touk Miller. But yeah, Rao really needs to get some easier touches around the ground and get himself into it because he's a really good kicker of the footy and seems to get them going, but he looked almost disinterested on the weekend. Jack Steele was amazing. He had another 27 touches, so he's finally starting to get going. But yeah, like I said, Gold Coast, most of the grunt work was left to Touk Miller and Anderson. They're going to need a lot more help if they want to win some of those games. But the Saints off to a very hot start, 4-1 after losing that round 1 match against Collingwood, which is disappointing. They've had some good wins. I'll touch on them and where they are in my tiers and why I think they should be where they are. The next game we have Adelaide versus Richmond. Now, I actually really like the fact that a lot of these teams that may not be that good when travelling into Melbourne are holding their own at their own stadium. So you had Gold Coast that obviously beat Carlton last week. You had Adelaide that had a really good game round 1 against Freo, just missed out by losing by a point. And then obviously Adelaide being able to hold off what's been a very up and down Richmond side. The Big Tex was amazing. He's well and truly back, booting 5 goals. Look, the stats showed coming into the game, I did say on the 100K podcast, that coming into the game, he had kicked 3 plus goals in his last 3 outings at Adelaide Oval. And then also last year against the Tigers, he booted 4 goals. So he was in form coming into, obviously, playing back at home and playing against Richmond. So he had 3 at quarter time and finished the game with 5. Rochelle popped up with another 2. You had a lot of other help from a lot of the other Adelaide forwards. They looked very exciting when they get the fast break off the turnover coming inside 50 with Himmelberg as well booting 4 goals. They've got a few of these guys that are popping up. They look so exciting. And look, the usual suspects in the middle getting the job done for the Crows. You had Ben Keys, Brodie Smith, Matt Crouch and Rory Laird combining for 111 disposals and 19 clearances, absolutely smashing the Tigers inside. Now, unfortunately for Rory Sloane, I think he has done his ACL. He's had such a stiff run with injury, so hope he can come back very soon. One of my favourite players to watch. Any of those tough inside midfielders, love watching them go at it. So very sad when they do get injured or seem to be out for a long period of time. The Tigers just seemed way too slow to adapt to the Crows' fast-paced game. They did come back a little bit, but then the Crows slowed it down and then really won the game on their terms, really pushing the ball forward again. And the Tigers just looked very disinterested. They looked old. They looked slow. They were chasing tail the whole game. And I'm still a big believer that the Tigers will not be playing finals this year. They're very up and down, but don't look like a finals team to me at this stage. Looked very disinterested throughout that game. But the Crows have been a very big surpriser so far this year. Love the way they're going about it. Sharing the ball around a lot. Jordan Dawson has been such a big inclusion for them. He's just a bit of class every time he gets it. He seems to always hit his targets and just really gets rid of that bad turnover within in the middle of the ground, because he always wants to try and look for that one coming in the middle and break the game open. So love what the Crows are doing. Now, the next game, Melbourne versus GWS, another pantsing. Now, another stiff multi. Jev, this was his almost lock of the week. So I wrote it with him. D's for the win, tick. Max Gawn, goal, tick. Luke Jackson, goal, tick. Luke Jackson, 15 touches, had 14 touches. So we only missed out by a touch. Fucking gut-wrenching. Honestly, just losing these multis by a leg really kicks you in the nuts, but we had to go back to it later on the Sunday, and then once again, like I'll touch on, very, very stiff throughout the rest of the week. Look, the Demons are head and shoulders above everyone else in the AFL. They've only conceded 4 goals so far in all the first quarters combined so far this year. They just clamp teams down and are virtually impossible to score against. May and Lever, look, the Twin Towers, it's almost impossible the way that they set up and they get everyone back behind the ball. I believe it was in the 4th quarter. The D's had the game absolutely sewn up, and then May came off his man about 15 to 20 metres to spoil this ball, put it into about the second tier at the MCG, and it just goes to show exactly what Melbourne want to do and how they want to play. Like, all the way to the final siren, they are still sticking with their structures, and they look so hard to score against, especially when you've got these run with guys and guys that will continue to get on back. Langdon, Bowie, Brayshaw, James Jordan getting back, Trent Rivers, all getting around 20 disposals each. So when you've got those guys coming back, helping out defensively, running through the ground, and then you've got your Bulls in the middle with Oliver and Petrarca getting another 30 plus disposals each, and then you've got your big ruckman. So you've got Gawn and Jackson that can go forward as well and kick goals. Bailey Fritsch kicked 4, Cozzy kicked 3. Melbourne just look like on another planet compared to every other team. And yeah, they still look like they have so much more improvement to do, judging off some of their games against like Essendon and stuff where they didn't really get firing until when they had to. Now, GWS just don't have enough performers. You had Green had 34, Ward had 34, Kelly 33. Taranto were all good in the middle, tend to get their own footy, but those guys, they're at their best when they're hitting the scoreboard as well. So none of them registered a goal, and they just weren't getting enough help throughout the ground. But massive shout out to Matty Flynn, who actually did a great job in the middle. Bruce went down, so they didn't have him as the ruckman. So Matty Flynn came in, and he actually recorded more hit-outs than Gawn and Jackson on the night with 27. I thought he played really well. I think about 11 or 13 disposals, but him in the middle, he was actually very surprising. But obviously Melbourne didn't really have to put too much work into him. They know that they had the grunt work all around the ground and were head and shoulders above them in every other skill position on the field. GWS put a line through them. They are not playing finals. Melbourne booking the grand final now because they will have a Melbourne reign all the way through the finals. They'll be playing at the MCG. The grand final will be at the MCG this year, so look for them. They will be playing in the grand final. It just depends who they're playing against. Now, the Sunday slate game that we were there, the 100K boys and a few others. Carlton versus Port Adelaide. Honestly, the Baggers just get it done again. We are 4-1. Look, I believe we're just reserving energy for the later games in the year. Only really needing to play a half, it seems, so far this year. Vossi seems to be pegging the boys back. We've only played a half of footy against pretty much every team. Richmond, we only played a half. Bulldogs, we only played a half. Hawthorn, we only played a half. And on the weekend, we only played a half against Port Adelaide. Look, we tried a different theory against Gold Coast. We only tried to play 5 minutes against them. But look, obviously that wasn't enough to get the job done. So we went back to playing 2 quarters this week against Port Adelaide and getting the job done. No doubt about it. Was not nervous in the slightest. But look, another absolute heartbreak. I had the Blues at the line at minus 8.5 points. Walsh for 30 and Mackay for 3 goals. That hit at 3/4 time. And then obviously Vossi's game plan said, nah, boys, we're only playing a half a footy. We can't play this last quarter. So obviously let Port Adelaide back into it. Blues getting it done by 3 points, but never in doubt. Look, no Cripps. Who was going to stand up? The other boys absolutely did. Walsh had 38. George Hewitt had 33 and 13 clearances. Chera had 32. I was thinking whether George Hewitt should go back to tagging maybe someone from the opposition at some stage throughout this year. Maybe Brayshaw this weekend against Freo, which will be a great matchup. But when you're getting the ball and doing it all yourself, just keep going. When you're hot, you're hot. So I love what George Hewitt's doing. So tough inside, but getting all those clearances. Look, the big blue forward, Mackay and Curnow combined for 5. They were still fumbling a few balls, missed some easy shots. We should have put them away far earlier than what we did, but I'm not concerned going forward. I'm really excited to versing a pretty good Fremantle side. They had a really good win on the weekend, but Port are more than done. The power is out for Ken Hinkley. Zip and 5, they looked terrible the first half. Like I said, when the Blues decided to play footy, we were head and shoulders above them, and then we just pulled in the reins, tried to reserve ourselves for this week, an actual contest, an actual team in Fremantle. Port Adelaide's done. Fire Ken Hinkley. He cannot coach to save himself. He couldn't coach an Auskick team. Get rid of Ken. Port are done. Blues are looking firm at 4-1. Now, the next game, Bombers versus Freo. If Port are the worst team in the AFL, the Bombers are a very close second. Ranked last or second last in almost every statistical category defensively through the first 5 games this year. Players walking throughout the game, looking to have no effort whatsoever on the ground. It looks so weak. Look, as a supporter, understand if your team loses, you can sort of cop that. But when your team isn't having a crack, it is the worst thing you'll ever see. Look, if you're a Hawthorn fan watching them lose to Carlton, you'd cop it. Like, they came in, they had a red hot crack, really tried throughout the game, but just watching Essendon roll over to an interstate team when you're at home, really trying to get the season going, is just absolutely pathetic. Rutten came in, I think, 3 years ago, and in his first interview, I went and re-listened to it yesterday, came in and said that how important defensive structure is to the Bombers, and then that's going to be their focal point then going forward. They have only gone backwards defensively. They have so much talent in the team. I think they've got 11 top 20 players, draftees, playing on the weekend, and they looked so disinterested. They didn't want to be out there. Devin Smith, which was once the number 1 defensive player in the AFL, number 1 in tackles, is barely getting a kick. He's come on as the sub a couple times this year and just looks like he's just coming to collect a paycheck. Look, Freo on the back of another amazing performance by Andrew Brayshaw. He had another 34-1. I believe he'll be going up the list on Jev's pyramid, maybe a top 2, maybe top 3 tier player. I forget where he was. I think he was maybe tier 4, but he's having a very underrated season. I think he's number 1 in all the coaches' votes so far this year, and well deserved, might I add. And also big Matt Taberner coming back, kicking a bag of 7 straight. I can't wait for this contest next week for the Blues and Freo. We've had the wood over them the last few times. They are our little skirts. So I hope that we're going to get over the top of them again. If the Blues actually wear our white jerseys, it's over already. I don't think we've lost to them in our white jerseys. So if we wear them, lace them up, I think we're paying $2.30 at the moment. Load up on that. Be taking that. And look, the Bombers have a huge Anzac Day match this week. Look, you would say that the season is on the line for a team like Essendon at this point of the season, but their season is already more than gone. Put a line through them. The Bombers are done. The Mosquito fleet. See you later. Park your plane somewhere else. You guys are an absolute rabble. I can't stand you. Ben Rutten can't coach, as well as Kenny Hinkley. Get rid of them both. I would be very sad if I was a Bombers supporter. Now, coming into the last game, Geelong and Hawthorn. Look, another multi-heartbreak yet again. Joel Selwood for 20 touches hit. Jeremy Cameron and Tom Hawkins for 2 goals each. That hit. And then Geelong for the win. And they just could not get it done against a very tough, will not go away Hawthorn side, which bounced back after a big loss against St Kilda. Another Easter Monday treat. It seems like every single year this game seems to deliver. Now, look, the stats don't lie. Joel Selwood has played the Hawks 29 times before the weekend. So on the weekend was his 30th time. Before then, his average in his career, 26.6 disposals against Hawthorn. And you wouldn't believe it, he had 26 again on the weekend. He's a fucking unbelievable player. So tough at it. He had another great game. Cameron and Hawkins kicked 3 each. Hawkins should have kicked 4+. He had that one at the top of the goal square, which he ballooned when he threw for a point. Look, Tom Mitchell had 33 and 1. John Newcomb stood up and well deservingly became the Rising Star nomination for this week. Had 31 disposals, 653 metres gained. Look, harder than a cat's head. Love the way he goes about it. Super tough at it. But look, just can't believe that the Hawks actually won. Cats were up by 10 points at 3/4 time. And the Hawks kicked 4 goals straight to 4 points in the last quarter. Hawks getting it done by 12 in a very, very impressive win. Now, if there's one thing I actually can't stand is this 50-metre rule. It has me absolutely stumped. Unless you can't talk back to an umpire. Like, I think Chris Scott, I always fucking forget which one it is, talking about it. So, obviously, you just can't react to anything, which I think is absolutely bullshit. You should be able to talk about it, or at least put your arms out. I think it's weak as water. It makes the game look shit house. I understand that you got to protect the umpires, or like you can't abuse them, but I reckon it's the worst fucking rule. You should be able to at least show some emotion if there is a free kick. You're trying to play a game at 100 miles an hour, so I absolutely can't stand the way that they're going about it. Now, I do have, for the first time this year, after 5 rounds so far of the season, we have our tiers. So our going through all the different tiers so far for every single team. Now, at the very top, which is a standalone, you have Melbourne, who are by far the flag favourites. They have been head and shoulders above every team so far this year, as we mentioned before. So they are at the very top. The next tier, which is our top 4 contenders so far, which is Carlton, Brisbane, and Sydney. Now, look, the Blues have the reason why I have the Blues here, even though they've looked a little bit shaky, mind you, we've only been playing a half of footy. We have Freo next, North, and then the Crows. So I believe once we win those 3 games, that we're going to be able to have a little bit of a lead over the other teams going forward. Now, also, the Swans and Brisbane up there for their fast ball movement. They also look like that they're really dangerous at home, and I just don't see any other teams better than Carlton, Brisbane, and Sydney at the moment. Just the way that the fixture is coming forward for these teams. Carlton have a pretty soft draw, so I'm thinking that those teams so far will be your top 4. Now, the next teams in the hunt, so you got Freo, St Kilda, Geelong, Hawthorn, and the Bulldogs. Now, look, the Saints have played the Pies, which they end up getting done by. But then after that, they had a really good win against Freo at Freo, even though they were underdone. Really good game against the Tigers, obviously. Good game against the Hawks. And then a really good win against the Suns. So they got GWS again this week, the Saints. I think they'll get that done. But then they still haven't faced a top 4 side so far this year. So it'll be interesting to see later in the stretch once they have to verse one of those teams. But I just think that any one of these teams will be playing finals. So it's either out of Freo, St Kilda, Geelong, Hawthorn, and the Bulldogs. The next tier is just teams you cannot trust so far. So it's Collingwood, Richmond, Adelaide, and the Suns. Collingwood looked really good against St Kilda, and then they look good against Adelaide, but then they look bad against all the other teams that they've been playing. They shit the bed against West Coast. They blew a massive lead against Geelong, so you just don't know where Collingwood are at this time. Richmond have been up and down, 1 week on, 1 week off. Adelaide have had some good wins. They've had some bad losses, like against Collingwood at the MCG. And then the Suns, they beat some good teams. They'll lose to some very average teams as well. Looked shitty week 1 against West Coast, only getting it done the last quarter. So can't trust these teams at this point. Don't think that those teams will be making finals. Teams on the next tier, which you can definitely put a line through, will not be playing finals, is Essendon and GWS. They both need a new head coach. They both are looking so When you watch them, they're disinterested, lack of commitment and effort from players. They will be booking an early trip to Bali in September. They will not be playing finals. Our next tier under that is the teams that are playing for the number one pick, which is North Melbourne and West Coast. Very dysfunctional once again. Their list is in shatters. West Coast have had so many injuries and COVID scares. North Melbourne are just a rabble of a football club. So they will be finishing towards the bottom or the bottom part of the ladder. And then the final tier, we have Fight Ken Hinkley. They are zipping 5. The worst start to a season in the club's history. Now, the Power have West Coast this week at home, which you should think that they would get their first win for the season. But mark my words, if they lose, Ken Hinkley will be handing over his polo before he leaves the coach's box on the weekend. Port Adelaide, I cannot stand them. Their fan base, Ken Hinkley's forgotten how to coach. I don't think he even brings the board with the magnets anymore. So I really hope West Coast, I love watching a train wreck. I really hope West Coast get over the top of them. But they are my tiers. Melbourne at the top. Then we got the top 4 contenders on the way through. In the hunt, you should see the poster for it, which we will have either posted or will be on here right now. But those are the tiers. If you have any disagreements, I would love to hear about it. But the 100K boys, like I said, a stiff week on the punt, but we'll be looking to get back into it this week. Some already huge markets out, so I can't wait to get amongst it. That is another episode of Inside Dobe. Blues are going to get it done this week against Freo. Melbourne are looking unreal, and I can't wait to see Port absolutely shit the bed against West Coast. And same against Essendon. Can't wait to see them shit the bed on Anzac Day. So there's another episode of Dobe. Let's go.